Okay, let's dive straight into a JRPG that really swung for the fences. I mean, aiming for something like Star Wars epicness in its story. Xenosaga Episode 1, Der Wildzermacht.
Yeah, and it wasn't just, a standalone thing. It was planned as the first part of this massive 6-part saga.
Right, carrying that spiritual torch from Xenogears, which people loved.
What gets me right away is just the sheer audacity of that initial plan. 6 parts. For a video game series back then?
Yeah.
That's real ambition.
Absolutely. And look, this isn't just us waxing nostalgic. We've gone through a ton of material devlogs, story analyses, character deep dives, even stuff about what didn't make it in. So our mission today, basically to pull out the most interesting, most insightful bits from this, let's be honest, incredibly dense game, give you a shortcut to understanding why it matters without you needing to sink another 100 hours playing it again.
And zooming out a bit, understanding how Episode I came about, how it changed. It really gives you a vital perspective on where JRPGs are going and, the themes Takahashi and his team kept exploring.
Okay, so let's rewind. The beginning. Monolith Soft, early 2000s. They've got the Xenogears legacy behind them. Tetsuya Takahashi and Xenosaga are leading the project. Their vision, it wasn't exactly small, was it?
Far from it. Takahashi, he was the director, the writer, really the engine behind that huge story and all those deep philosophical questions the game asks.
Right.
And Xenosaga, his co-writer, she was absolutely key in building that intricate world and story, especially laying all that groundwork in this first episode. They weren't just making a game. They were trying to build a whole universe meant to unfold over, 6 games.
And the team they got together, amazing. A lot of familiar faces from Xenogears, right?
Exactly. Kuni Kutanako is back doing those character designs. You see Shion, you see KOS-MOS, and you instantly know that's Tanaka.
Totally distinctive.
And the mech designers, like Juni Ishigaki, bringing those AGWS mechs to life, they looked incredible.
The whole game just had this unique visual style from day one, didn't it?
No doubt. And we absolutely have to talk about Yasunori Mitsuda's score.
Oh, definitely.
Getting a full orchestra. Some sources say London Philharmonic, others Royal Philharmonic, but still a full orchestra. That just pushed the whole thing into cinematic territory. The music wasn't just background noise. It was part of the emotional core.
Yeah, that huge orchestral sound, those melodies, our Xenosaga. But, that kind of grand vision, it runs into problems, right? Sources say the budget was tight pretty early on.
Indeed. I mean, paying for an orchestra like that plus everything else, it definitely put pressure on them. Our research suggests even the final boss. The original idea had to be changed because of money constraints.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Xenosaga leaving after Episode I. The details aren't totally clear, but it seems like her departure really shifted things for the whole series plan.
Oh, hugely. It's hard to really overstate how much that might have changed things. She was such a key creative partner for Takahashi. Her way of storytelling was so central to Episode I's, complexity. Her leaving probably forced major changes to that original 6-part plan, leading to it ending up as a trilogy.
And you can actually see hints of a bigger original plan in the game data, right? We found stuff about characters who were almost fully playable, like Jin Uzuki, Shion's brother. He was meant to be in the party in Episode I, but got cut.
Yeah, and what's wild is how much work was done on some of that cut content. Jin, sometimes called Shitan in the files, which is a clear nod to Xenogears he had, like full stats, tech attacks, even ether skills coded in.
Wow.
It really suggests he was meant to have a pretty big role in Episode I's story. Cutting him must have meant rewriting a fair bit.
And it wasn't just Jin. There were slots for Cecilia and Catherine, characters we see later. Maybe they were meant to show up earlier. Plus, unused models, older battlesuits, Margulis in a Federation uniform suggesting maybe flashbacks, even a more complete model for Shion's mom.
It really paints this picture of something much bigger that had to be scaled back. And the unused areas, too, bits of the UMN Control Center, you don't see till Episode 2. Bigger sections of Second Miltia the party doesn't even go to in Episode 1.
Right.
The fact that Jin's house is almost totally finished in Episode I's data, it does sort of back up the theory that the first game was maybe going to cover more ground, maybe even some stuff that ended up in Episode 2.
Man, it makes you wonder what that original flow would have felt like. And mentions of characters like Shelbron and Hinlin, who aren't important until way later.
Exactly. It's like finding the blueprints for this sprawling mansion. But they ended up building, a still impressive but smaller house.
Yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't just content cuts. There were those regional differences, too.
Yeah.
Like the censorship of that Albedo and Momo scene in North America.
Oh, right, that scene.
Yeah. Stuff like that, even if it seems small, it can change the impact, the intended feeling of a scene. Plus, no HDD install option internationally, which could help load times. Even things like hidden debug menus. They give you a little peek behind the curtain, you know.
So, okay, we have this backdrop. Massive ambition, some necessary cuts and changes, and then the story itself kicks off. We're thrown into TC 4767, far future, Galaxy Federation running things. But the real roots go way, way back, don't they, to 21st century Kenya?
Yes, that prologue. It's absolutely crucial. Finding the Zohar back then, that's the event that sets everything in motion. It's why humanity can travel between stars, but it's also ultimately what everyone's fighting over.
It's like this double-edged sword.
Totally. It enables progress, but also fuels conflict. A real warning about, unchecked power or knowledge.
And the main plot starts with a bang, right? Aboard the Woglund, Gnosis attack triggered by a Zohar emulator. We meet Shion and KOS-MOS, Alan. And then there's that really controversial death of Lieutenant Virgil pretty early on.
Yeah, that opening throws you right into it. You see how terrifying the Gnosis are, what KOS-MOS can do, and the kind of tough moral spots Shion gets put in immediately. Virgil's death. It highlights that clash between, human feeling and cold, hard military logic.
Then it's a mad dash to the Elsa. We meet Chaos, who definitely lives up to his name, being so mysterious, and we see Commander Terenkov's horrifying transformation into a Gnosis, which ties into the Life Recycling Act and Ziggy's past too.
Cherenkov's story is so tragic. It really digs into the psychological damage of war, the dehumanizing potential of technology like that Life Recycling Act. His change isn't just a monster showing up, it's about the consequences of trauma.
Then there's Ziggy's mission, rescue Momo. She's this prototype, really, and basically a very advanced artificial human carrying vital data. Ziggy's own backstory is just incredibly sad. Loss, wanting death, being brought back against his will.
Super poignant. And it's Momo who gives him his nickname, Ziggy. It sparks this really unexpected, touching kind of father-daughter connection between them.
Yeah, it's one of the emotional cores early on.
Definitely. Ziggy's cynicism versus Momo's innocence. Their interactions add a lot of heart.
Things get seriously weird when the Elsa gets swallowed whole by a cathedral ship. A living Gnosis ship.
I know. The imagery is just wild. Classic Xenosaga, really leaning into the symbolic and the bizarre.
And then they get rescued by the Durandal. We meet Junior, leader of the Kukai Foundation, who's also collecting Zohar emulators, which just adds another layer of complexity.
Right, and Junior's arrival brings in more politics. Utik frames him. The party ends up basically hostages at the Kukai Foundation base near 2nd Miltia. It gets complicated fast.
So, to clear their names, they dive into KOS-MOS's subconscious, her encephalon, guided by this mysterious girl, Nephilim. And that's where we get flashes of the Miltian conflict, Febronia's plea, and learn KOS-MOS is meant to fight something called UDO.
Which is presented as this, huge cosmic threat, right?
Exactly. Very powerful universe-level danger.
Those encephalon dives are visually stunning and just packed with clues. They explore memory, trauma, the subconscious, and Nephilim's riddles hint at this much bigger cosmic war going on.
Then Albedo shows up, captures Momo, tortures her for the Y data. It's rough. And that triggers the Song of Nephilim.
Ugh, Albedo. He's a really disturbing villain. That whole sequence is unsettling, but vital to understanding him.
And Wilhelm, the big Vector Industries CEO, steps in here, right? Stops the Gnosis somehow, shows he's pulling strings.
Yeah, Wilhelm intervening there shows his power and his manipulative role behind everything. He knows more than he lets on.
So the party boards the Utik ship, rescues Momo, confronts Albedo, who escapes with the data, helped by Louis Virgil, back from the dead in a blue cloak.
Virgil coming back is a testament. That just throws another huge mystery into the pot. What are the testaments?
Right. Then Albedo summons Proto-Merkaba, this giant weapon, attacks the Federation fleet, attacks 2nd Miltia's capital. It's chaos, leading to the final infiltration, destroying its core.
Proto-Merkaba really ramps up the stakes, shows the scale of destruction possible, and that final fight inside, even though Albedo gets away again, it feels climactic.
And you can't forget KOS-MOS seemingly sacrificing herself to shield the Elsa as it enters 2nd Miltia's atmosphere.
Though, of course, she survives.
Which leaves us with just so many questions hanging. What is the Zohar, really? What's UDO? Where do the no-seas come from? What's Wilhelm's actual plan? The testaments. And mysteries around Shion, KOS-MOS, chaos.
Yeah, the ending is wide open. It totally sets up the next games. Leaves you feeling the sheer scale of this universe and all the secrets still hidden.
And all this drama happens across some really memorable places. The Wogglind, the Elsa, that creepy cathedral ship, the Durandal, the Kukai Foundation base, the Encephalon, Proto-Merkabah, Second Miltia.
And those locations aren't just backgrounds, you know. They often reflect the themes or what the characters are going through, like the sterile tech of the Wogglind versus the weird, organic feel of the cathedral ship. It's all very deliberate.
So at the heart of this huge story are the characters. And like our sources say, their motivations are tied right into those big philosophical ideas the game tackles. Let's talk about the main crew, starting with Shion Uzuki.
Shion really is the emotional center, isn't she? Head of the KOS-MOS project, haunted by the Miltian conflict, losing Kevin Winnicott. Her main drive is protecting KOS-MOS, protecting her friends. But she's also wrestling with the ethics of creating AI and her own strange connection to Nephilim.
And then KOS-MOS herself, this anti-Mosis weapon programmed to protect Shion. But you see these hints of her acting on her own, maybe glimpses of another personality. Is she becoming conscious? That's the big question, right?
Absolutely. KOS-MOS is like the embodiment of so many of the game's big questions. What is consciousness? Can machines have souls? What does it mean to be human? Plus, her weapons are awesome, and her connection to chaos and Nephilim makes her even more central.
Ziggy, or Jan Sauer, such a tragic guy, a cyborg brought back to life when he wanted to die, finds this unexpected purpose protecting Momo. That bond they form, it's really powerful. Talks about mortality, finding meaning, even when you don't want to exist.
His journey is amazing. It's about finding resilience after incredible loss. Momo basically gives him a reason to keep going.
And Momo herself, the prototype Rielu, carrying her dad's legacy, that crucial Y data. She's modeled after Sakura Mizrahi, always seeking approval, dealing with questions about being artificial, having a soul.
Momo's innocence and empathy, especially in these dangerous situations, make them really easy to connect with. Even though she's technically artificial, she really makes you think about what counts as life, as personhood.
Then there's Chaos. Still waters run deep with that guy. Crew member on the Elsa can somehow dispel Gnosis. Seems ageless, has this presence. And finding out later he's Yeshua, an anima incarnation. Wow. Adds so much depth to his role as this quiet protector and guide.
Yeah, Chaos is operating on another level, always calm, subtly guiding things. His connection to KOS-MOS and Nephilim suggests he understands way more about what's going on than he says.
Then Junior, Gignan Kukai Jr. Also Rubedo, URTV number 666. Leader of the Kukai Foundation, doesn't age normally, has psychic powers, this red dragon mode. He's super protective of the Foundation of Second Miltia. Always clashing with his twin, Albedo, and dealing with his own origins. Plus that bond with Momo because she looks like Sakura.
Junior's big struggle is about his artificial creation and the power he has. His rivalry with Albedo is a huge part of the story, and his protectiveness towards Momo shows he can form deep connections despite how he was made.
And it's not just the main party. The supporting cast is deep too. Alan Ridgely, Shion's supportive friend with the crush. The terrifying Albedo driven mad by immortality. Louis Virgil coming back changed. Cherenkhov's tragic arc. Margulis, the tough military commander, Wilhelm, the puppet master, and Nephilim holding all those secrets.
Even the side characters are really well developed. Like Albedo, he's not just evil. His madness comes from somewhere specific, his regeneration. And Wilhelm lurking in the background adds so much intrigue. Nephilim's riddles are key to the bigger mysteries, the Zohar, UDO.
Okay, so, amazing characters, huge story, but how does Xenosaga episode I actually play? Our sources talk about pretty complex exploration and combat systems.
Yeah, exploration's pretty structured, fixed camera angles, mostly linear paths through areas like ships or stations, not really open world like we think of it now.
Right.
But you still explore, break objects for items, use memory crystals to save, and some crystals let you access minigames through the EVS, the environment simulator, and the UMN interface itself for email and database stuff. It ties into that Jungian idea of the collective unconscious, which is a cool thematic link.
Okay, and the combat, turn-based, but sounds like it has a lot going on.
It is turn-based, yeah. Enemies on the map, usually no running away. Turn order depends on speed, the GTW, ground turn window. You get action points, AP 4 per turn, hold up to 6. Standard attacks cost 2, ether skills 4, items 3. Unused AP carries over so you can save up.
Okay. Strategic.
Definitely encourages planning.
Yeah.
Then you have tech attacks, big special moves. Cost 6 AP, sometimes 4 in special slots. You learn them by leveling. Input button combos, assign them to shortcuts, and you upgrade them with tech points, TPTs, for speed, power, wait time.
And then the boost system. Being able to jump the queue, interrupt enemies. That sounds crucial.
Oh, it is. Mastering boost is key for harder fights, lets you interrupt. chain turns, adds a real tactical layer. And there's the event slot, too. Random bonuses after each action, like more critical hits, faster boost gain, or point multipliers. You try to time your big hits for those point bonus slots.
Plus different enemy types, bio, mech, gnosis, with weaknesses you find using Analyze Ether, and front-back rows affecting physical damage.
Right, another tactical thing to consider.
Yeah.
And the AGWS. The mechs you can pilot.
Yes.
They have their own HP, weapons, you can upgrade them, but they're expensive early on. And if your AGWS gets destroyed, the pilots after that fight can't be revived, so risk versus reward. But they ignore the back row damage reduction, which is useful.
So high investment, high risk, potentially high reward.
Pretty much. Especially early game, you got to decide if it's worth the cost and the risk.
And character growth sounds multi-layered too. Regular EXP for levels and base stats.
Yep. Then tech points, TPTs, for upgrading specific stats like vitality or power, and for improving individual tech attacks.
Oh, okay.
Then ether points, EPTS, to unlock new ether spells. You evolve existing spells on a character-specific tree. Some ethers can even be transferred between characters, though not all.
Interesting.
And finally, skill points, SPT. You get these by basically breaking down accessories or equipment to extract passive skills. Then you equip those skills up to your skill line limit, which you can also upgrade.
Wow. That is a lot of systems.
It's deep. Definitely rewards players who like to min-max and manage details. The ether evolution thing is pretty unique.
Yeah.
But yeah, all these systems are why some people criticize the pacing. You can spend a lot of time in menus.
Right, I can see that. And to break things up, there are mini games.
Yeah, quite a few. A casino with poker and slots, a drill game like a crane machine, Xenocard, which is actually a pretty decent collectible card game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, surprisingly deep rules. Plus AGWS arena battles, and even a quick game of tag early on. They were nice distraction, could give you some good items. But yeah, some players felt they were a bit underdeveloped compared to the main game's complexity.
Okay, now let's get into what really makes Xenosaga episode I Stand Out.
Ew.
The themes, the philosophy, this is where it goes beyond just being a sci-fi RPG.
Absolutely. This game is wrestling with huge questions. Existence, consciousness, reality. The way it weaves in philosophy and religion is core to its identity.
Starting with Nietzsche. The subtitle itself, Der Wille zur Macht, the will to power. That's straight from Nietzsche, right? About striving, overcoming, defining yourself. Takahashi even said it was central.
Totally. And it's not just for the heroes, it's that fundamental drive in everyone.
Yeah.
You also see hints of eternal recurrence, maybe? Escaping cycles of suffering. The whole transcend Christ calendar system might nod to that too, breaking from cycles.
And Carl Jung's ideas are all over it too. The UMN, the Unus Mundus network, basically functions like his collective unconscious, right? This psychic network connecting everyone.
Exactly. It's a brilliant way to visualize that concept. And the encephalon dives, that's pure Jungian exploration of the psyche, delving into the subconscious. Even the anima archetype KOS-MOS challenging Cheyenne, chaos acting as this guide figure. It fits.
Then there's existentialism woven through it. Freedom versus fate, the search for meaning, the weight of choice.
Definitely. The gnosis terror, the Rielu situation. It highlights how fragile existence is. And Alan calling out bad faith. That's straight Sartre running away from your freedom and responsibility.
Yeah. The game really pushes characters to face their choices, even when things seem hopeless. It grapples with that existential absurdity.
And while maybe Xenogears leaned even harder on Freud and Lacan, you still feel their influence here. Repressed memories, trauma shaping people, the fragmented self, it's all baked into the character's psychology.
And the religious stuff is dense. Gnosticism is huge. Gnosis itself, the Zohar, that whole conflict between spirit and flawed material world.
Yeah, Gnosticism provides a great lens. The Gnosis embodied that flawed reality, the yearning for something more. The Zohar linking to an upper domain. Very Gnostic feel.
Yeah.
Plus the Zohar emulator is named after apostles.
And tons of biblical references to Nephilim, Yeshua for chaos. People turn to salt like Lot's wife. That quote, "You shall be as gods."
It draws heavily on Judeo-Christian stories, especially the New Testament, and direct links to Jewish Kabbalah with the Zohar itself.
So it's not just name-dropping, it's using these ideas to add layers.
Exactly. It prompts you to think about faith, spirit, mythology, all within this high-tech future.
So all these threads, Nietzsche, Jung, existentialism, Gnosticism, Bible refs, they all tie into these core themes, right? Like, what does it mean to be human when you have aliens, cyborgs, androids?
Precisely. And consciousness, the soul, does KOS-MOS feel? Does Momo have a soul? Memory and trauma, how the past haunts Shion, Ziggy, junior faith versus science. And that big one, the search for meaning and purpose against all this war and suffering, finding that will to power to keep going.
And the game does a great job making these big ideas personal through the character stories. It's not just a philosophy lecture.
That's the key. It embeds these abstract concepts right into the character struggles, making them feel real and relatable.
So with all this ambition, how did it actually land? How was it received? Critically, it seems like it did pretty well.
Yeah, generally positive reviews, solid Metacritic score, praise from places like IGN, GameSpot, Famitsu. GameSpy even named it PS2 RPG of the Year.
Okay.
Got some award nominations, too.
And commercially, sold well, right? Especially in Japan.
Definitely. Hit #1 in Japan, sold over 1 million worldwide eventually. So critically and commercially, it was largely seen as a success at the time.
But player reactions were maybe a bit more mixed.
A little, yeah. People loved the story, the themes, the cinematic feel, the music, the characters. KOS-MOS became instantly iconic.
Oh, for sure.
But the criticisms often focused on the pacing, those long cutscenes, the sometimes slow combat animations, and just how complex all those upgrade systems felt to some players.
So a split between loving the story and maybe finding the gameplay a bit demanding or slow.
That seems to be the common thread. The narrative depth was praised, but the mechanics weren't for everyone.
Still, despite maybe some gameplay quirks, its legacy seems huge. It put Monolith Soft on the map as a major JRPG force, cemented the Xeno brand.
Absolutely. And Episode I is often looked back on really fondly, maybe even more than the later ones, just for how bold its vision was. It definitely has a cult following because of the deep lore, the philosophy, those characters.
It's kind of remembered as this ambitious but flawed masterpiece, maybe. Amazing story and ideas, but maybe some rough edges in the gameplay.
That sounds about right. It reached for the stars, storytelling-wise. Didn't quite nail every single landing gameplay-wise for everyone, but its impact is undeniable. And the fact that the 6-episode plan got cut short just adds to that feeling of this grand vision that wasn't fully realized.
And Episode I wasn't the end of the story for Episode I, was it? There was that reloaded version in Japan?
Right, reloaded. That added the English voices for the Japanese audience, tweaked a few things like censoring that FMV, added some cosmetic outfits, a cutscene viewer. Minor stuff mostly.
And the DS game, Xenosaga I and 2, that sounded like a bigger change.
Oh yeah, that was a whole different beast. Retold episodes I and 2 on the DS. Top-down 2D exploration, sprites, grid-based combat, a completely different gameplay experience, supervised by Takahashi, but definitely a reimagining. Didn't sell huge numbers, though.
Of course, you can't talk Xenosaga without talking Xenogears. That connection is fundamental.
Spiritual ancestry is the perfect term. They share so much DNA of philosophy, Nietzsche, Jung, Freud, the psychology, the religious themes, Gnosticism, Kabbalah, reincarnation, that will to power idea.
And narrative patterns too, right? Opening movies about ancient events, protagonists with hidden pasts, mysterious, powerful allies.
Definitely. And key people, Takahashi directing and writing both, Tanaka on characters, Mitsuda composing for Episode I. Xenosaga really feels like Takahashi getting another shot at the massive story he originally conceived. You know, the whole idea of Xenogears being Episode V and Xenosaga I being Episode I in some grander timeline.
Which is mind-bogglingly ambitious. And the characters themselves have popped up elsewhere, haven't they? Especially KOS-MOS.
Oh yeah, KOS-MOS is the crossover queen. Namco X Capcom, Super Robot ties an OG Saga, Project X Zone, even Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Wow.
Shion, Momo, Ziggy were in Namco X Capcom 2. Even Junior and Alan showed up as non-playable characters there. But yeah, KOS-MOS is the big one. Her design, her whole vibe. Just iconic.
And the Xenosaga world went beyond games, too. Anime, manga.
Yep. There was a 12-episode anime adapting Episode 1, mixed reception, kind of condensed things, didn't have the core game staff involved. A manga adaptation, too. Drama CDs expanding on backstories, probably.
Yeah.
Art books, supplementary materials.
And that Xenosaga Freaks thing, a fan disc.
Yeah, PS2 fan disc. Had a visual novel part, a minigame, a dictionary, an Episode 2 demo. Really shows they were trying to cultivate that dedicated fan base early on. Soundtracks released too, of course.
So, wrapping this deep dive up, Xenosaga Episode 1, it was just incredibly ambitious. Tried to blend deep philosophy with this epic sci-fi story packed with memorable characters. Left a huge mark on JRPGs, on Monolith Soft.
Definitely. A real testament to using games to explore complex ideas and push narrative boundaries. That mix of philosophy and sci-fi adventure, even if it was demanding sometimes, created something really unique and lasting.
And, you know, even acknowledging the gameplay criticisms, its legacy as this thought-provoking cinematic journey holds up.
For sure.
And maybe Maybe thinking about it now, with everything going on with AI, questions about consciousness, humanity's future, maybe those big philosophical questions Xenosaga raised back then are even more relevant today. Something to think about, maybe even worth revisiting the game itself to see what insights it still holds.